Hi. Okay, today we're going to talk about Chapter 5 in Solving the Mystery of Reading. So you will need to get your book and get your study guide and then turn to Chapter 5. Chapter 5 is all about context clues, which are actually hints that help you understand the meaning of a word or a passage. Okay, and it is also about deductions, which are conclusions that you make after you have all of the information. We're going to talk about the deductions a little bit later. First, we're going to talk about context clues. There are many types of context clues. So we're going to talk about each of those types right now. The first one is definition or information clue. You will find this one on page 83 in your Solving the Mystery of Reading book. Definition or information clues actually give you the definition of the unknown word. For example, on page 83, this sentence says, linguists, people who study languages, were interested in the Rosetta Stone. Okay, so if I didn't know the word linguists, it tells me right here, there's a comma, and then it says, people who study languages, and another comma. So that tells me what a linguist is. It's a person who studies languages. Okay, so you know that it's a definition or an information clue because usually there are commas, or if you look in your book at the other examples, you'll see sometimes parentheses around that definition, or there may be a dash between the words, so it lets you know what the definition is. Okay, so that's definition or information clues. The next kind of clue is synonym clue. It's on page 84. And if you don't know what a synonym is, it is a word with a similar meaning. So, for example, the treasurer of the club takes care of fiscal money matters. Okay, if you didn't know what fiscal meant, in a synonym clue, it gives you the answer with a word that's similar to the unknown word. So fiscal is another word for money. Okay, so in the synonym example, it just lets you know, in parentheses usually, again, it could be dashes, it could be commas. All right, but it does tell you a synonym for the unknown word. In this case, money is a synonym of fiscal. Okay, the next kind of context clue is an antonym clue. This is on page 85. And if you didn't already know, antonyms are words with opposite meanings like big and small. Okay, one of the examples from your book goes like this. I would like to be affluent, but I guess I'll always be poor. So if we don't know what affluent means, there is an antonym clue. And that antonym clue is poor. And the way I know that there is an opposite or antonym clue is the word but. Okay, so again, this sentence says, I would like to be affluent, but I guess I'll always be poor. So that means that, I don't know if you can see, that poor is the opposite of affluent. Okay, so if poor is the opposite, affluent must mean rich. Okay, so affluent means rich. Okay, that is an antonym or opposite clue. Next is an example clue. These are on page 85 and 86. An example of an example clue is this sentence. It says mathematics courses such as geometry, algebra, and calculus can be fun. Okay, it actually gives us examples of what mathematics courses are. We all know what mathematics is, but in case we didn't, mathematics is the unknown word, and then it gives us examples, geometry, algebra, calculus. So now we know, oh, okay, mathematics means geometry, algebra, calculus. And so that's an example clue where it actually gives you examples of the unknown word. The next kind of context clue is background knowledge, and you'll find this on page 86 and 87 of your SMR book. An example of a background knowledge context clue is this sentence. My 75-year-old mother and my 93-year-old grandmother are in the same geriatric care home. Okay, geriatric is the unknown word. So just from our background knowledge, we know that, okay, my mother's 75 years old, my grandmother is 93 years old, and they're in some kind of care home. So what does geriatric mean? Oh, it probably means a home for older people, right? Some of you probably already know that. But that's an example of background knowledge. Now, the tricky thing about background knowledge is some of us have a lot and some of us have less, depending on sometimes how old we are or how much we read. And again, I think that I have said this before, the more you read, the more background knowledge you get. So, okay, that's background knowledge. The last grammar and punctuation clue that we're going to talk about, I'm going to go over here, is on page 89 and 90. And it's grammar and punctuation, and this is actually my favorite one. I don't know why, they're just tricky and they're fun. An example of a grammar and punctuation clue is this. Okay, I've written two sentences. They're almost the exact same. The first one says, I invited Brother John to dinner. The second sentence says, I invited my brother John to dinner. Okay, so there are a couple of different things in these sentences. The first one, there's a capital B. Okay, the second sentence, no capital B. And I added a word, my. So those are very little differences, but in which sentence do you think maybe a priest or someone from a church came to dinner? If you guess sentence one, you're right. Because Brother John, if this is capital, it means it's a title. So the first sentence, I invited Brother John to dinner. In that case, probably someone from church came to dinner. In the second sentence, it says, I invited my brother John, just my plain old brother John, to dinner. Okay, so that's one way that grammar and punctuation can make a big difference. Here's another example. The first sentence says, the roof on the dog's house leaks. Okay. The second sentence says the exact same thing. The roof on the dog. Both sentences say the exact same thing, but there is one little difference. If you didn't notice already, I'm going to show you. It's this apostrophe. In this sentence, the apostrophe is after the G, before the S. Okay, so that means the roof on the dog's house, one dog. Okay, it's a house that belongs to one dog. The dog's house leaks. On the second sentence, the apostrophe is here after the S. In that case, it means there are more than one dog. So this could be like 5 dogs. The roof on the dog's house leaks. So you can see that just where you put an apostrophe makes a big difference in the meaning. So let me ask you this. If the apostrophe is before the G, or I'm sorry, if it's between the G and the S, how many dogs are there? 1. Okay, because you're just looking at this. Just one dog. And if you have it this way with the apostrophe after the S, how many dogs? We don't know. Could be 100. But let's just say more than 1. Okay, and you know because the apostrophe comes after the S, so it's already plural. All right, we're going to move on to idioms. I need to stop, and I'm just going to erase this and write it really quick.
So should I stop it?
Yeah, I think so. All right, the next thing in Chapter 5 that I want to tell you about is idioms. If you look on page 91, it'll say, beware the red herring. I hate that example. So let's just talk about idioms. They are groups of words that have meaning completely different from the words used. Right? And if that doesn't make sense, look at these examples. Number 1. Sally is living high on the hog. Okay, so this part, living high on the hog, that's the idiom. Anybody know what it means? I'll tell you. Living high on the hog means living very well, like maybe spending a lot of money or eating a lot or just living very well. Okay, so that's what living high on the hog means. The second example of an idiom is, and you've probably heard this one before, keep your nose to the grindstone. If you don't know what that means, it means keep working hard, keep focused, keep your eye on the goal, all those kind of things. And the third and last example I have for you is Paul was sitting on the fence. Okay, so again, it doesn't really mean he was sitting on the fence, but what it means is he was undecided. So Paul was like, sitting on the fence means, should I go this way or that way? So it means undecided. Idioms, there are thousands of them in our English language, which makes it tricky, especially for people who are non-English speakers trying to learn English. And they come from different regions of our country, and most of us use them all the time and we're not even aware of it. So in this class, you'll be at least hearing me say a lot of times, that's an idiom, because we use them all the time. Okay, so that's idioms. The last thing we're going to talk about are deductions, and they're on page 93. I'm going to move over here. Deductions are educated guesses that are based on information you know. For example, I have a list of sentences here, and in the end, we need to decide if Sam is a dog, a seal, a man, or a girl. And this example is in your book. Okay, so page 93. The first sentence says, Sam loves to bark. Okay, so do we know, is Sam a dog? Could be. A seal? Could be. A man or a girl? Could be. I mean, sometimes people bark. It's weird, but anyway, okay, so the next sentence tells us, Sam loves to bark out the window at people. Okay, so Sam could be a dog. A seal, it's less likely, okay, because a seal probably wouldn't be in a car. And again, could still be a man or a girl. So the third sentence says, Sam loves to bark and wave a hand out the window at people. Okay, so now we can start making deductions. Wave a hand is a good clue, because a dog doesn't have a hand and a seal doesn't have a hand. So we know that Sam is either a man or a girl. All right, the last clue we have says, Sam loves to bark and wave her hand out the car at people. Okay, so it says wave her hand. And so now we know that Sam is a girl. So we made a deduction. But first, we needed all of the information. If we had just read sentence 1, Sam loves to bark, it could be anything. After we read the second sentence, we knew a little bit more information. We could have made a deduction, but it may not have been accurate. So we read our third example that gave us more information, and then the last example gave us even more information. So in the end, when we knew all of the information, then we were able to make an educated guess, which in other words is called a deduction. Okay, that is all we're going to talk about for Chapter 5 today. See you on the next video. Dog's house leaks. That's such a good role, too.